Aloha and welcome to Trust and Verify. I'm Trust, he's Verify. Tonight we have a fun show planned for you, as opposed to the last couple of weeks where I said we had a boring show planned for you. So before we can get to that, let's kick it off by introducing my friend, my partner, Boogie Bumper. Boogie, how's it going?
Good, James. Good. Good to be with you once again. Thanks for joining us, everyone there in the chat on stream.me. Thank you to the replay viewers on Periscope tomorrow, which is actually today, which I'm saying yesterday. So if you can hang on with that, you should have fun for the rest of the show. Thanks for sharing out the links too, by the way, guys. Yeah, looking forward to a fun one. Better intro this week. I'll give it about a 6.3 out of 10, James. You're working your way up. You've got a big future ahead of you as long as you continue with that kind of trajectory. So very exciting stuff. There is a couple of things we wanted to go over, isn't there? And if I could, if you would allow me, if I could just jump on a soapbox for a minute or two. Q is obviously it's a big conversation right now, and I did a little bit about it on Thursday night, but let me just preface what I want to show you, what I want to speak to you about with maybe just 1 minute of this clip. So have a listen to this. This is a guy from the Washington Post speaking with MSNBC.
Talking videos with hundreds of thousands of views, probably millions of people believing in this, and you saw it last night at that Tampa rally for Donald Trump. This is showing up everywhere, and it's showing up on Amazon.com. Like, you can buy Q merchandise on Amazon.com. Until last month, until we alerted Apple, the number 10 paid app on the App Store, amongst like Minecraft and things your kids would see, was a Q Drops app. And again, this is bananas stuff. This is stuff like, you know, right. Hillary Clinton is like mixing baby blood into cement, like totally bananas off the chart stuff. I really believe this stuff. And
okay, so here's an issue for you, and I just want to. This is going to be difficult, but just give me 5 minutes or so to try and express my thoughts and get around it. I literally was just saying to James, I've sat down 10 minutes before we went live, so I haven't had much time to gather everything up. But so let's think about it this way. One of the criticisms that people have of the Q movement is that it's become a kind of religious following. Would you agree with that, James? That's what people say. That's one of the critiques, right? Now, like a discussion between a religious person and an atheist, who often find themselves arguing about whether or not God is real, it ends up in many cases being something that's completely unprovable. But more than that, the person that believes in God is never going to shift and say that it's not real, and the person that believes God isn't real is never going to shift and become a believer. So in that respect, I tend to think the argument about whether or not Q, the person, the group of people, what have you, whether he or she or them is real or not, tends to be a rather unproductive one. In saying that, though, where God may not be real, what is real, insofar as we can measure it objectively, is how that belief may manifest itself in certain behaviors or actions, to which the atheist can agree. Now, the atheist might say, well, that manifestation of belief can have horrible consequences. For example, people fighting wars over religion and whatnot. To which the believer can say, yes, but the manifestations of that belief can have amazingly productive and good consequences, such as charity, helping your fellow man, and becoming more in tune with your spiritual side. So then I guess the argument becomes, well, is a manifestation of belief in this necessarily good or necessarily bad or somewhere in between? Now, you've watched the mainstream media reporting over this over the last few days. That was just one example. Now, someone that we know, Praying Medic, and Praying Medic has a lot of people, a lot of enemies out there, which if you don't have to like anybody, who you like and don't like is completely up to you. He's a big boy with a big account. I think he's got about 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. So he doesn't need me coming in and, waving a shield in front of him. I'm pretty sure he can handle himself. But now, one of the videos I happened to watch a few days ago, James, was about the FISA court. Now, unlike that NBC reporter who said these people are talking about Hillary Clinton mixing baby blood with cement to build a house, this particular video from the Praying Medic was I mean, there was a lot of details about the FISA court, like, for example, what is a Title VII? What is this kind of surveillance? Who signs what? Who orders what surveillance and whatnot? And I thought to myself, well, how many people would have known this before watching that? Now, we like to think that a lot of people, you know, it'd be nice if a lot of people understood how these aspects of the most powerful government on earth work, but I would wager that the overwhelming majority of people don't. And what was also clear to me in that clip was when he gave an opinion, he was very clear about giving an opinion. Okay, so this is what I believe is happening. Now, it's very hard to mistake that. You would have to be particularly gullible to say, well, he's saying this is definitely what it is because he's had a dream or something, right? At no point in that video did he preface, I believe this is happening because I dreamt about it last night. It was like, here's the facts that we know, and here's an opinion that I'm giving based on what I found, which is a far cry away from what you just heard there in that short news clip. Now, what if you were the atheist? And this is basically Q agnosticism we're discussing here. If you were the atheist, you might say, well, belief in the Sky Daddy Q is bad, especially if it manifests bad things like people believing ridiculousness, people becoming lazy perhaps, and people saying, well, I don't have to do anything because Q says trust the plan, to which I have some sympathy with that view. But from what I can ascertain for the most part, the manifestation in the Sky Daddy Q, be he real or not, seems to be, for the most part, causing a lot of people to at least look at things they otherwise wouldn't have looked at, and not necessarily conspiracy theory stuff here. I'm talking like fundamentals, like how does the FISA court warrant system work, for example? Like how does that work? How do you sign off at a surveillance warrant? People wouldn't have known that 6 months ago, and they know that today because of the manifestation in this belief, which has driven a particular action. Now, the other, and then I'll throw back to you, James, and you can go where you want with this, because I'm just trying to address, like, you know, it's going to get a bit vicious, I think, this conversation. And I just want to put it out there as someone who's never followed Q, right? I've had no interest in it.
Right.
You know, James sent me an article the other day and he said, oh, you know, Q was talking about this. Next thing you know, I'm looking up different articles for the next 2 hours. And I said, see, this is exactly why I don't fucking do it. This is why I'm not interested, because now I haven't done any work all afternoon, right? But so the criticism would be, well, this is a perfect opportunity for the liberal corporate media complex to paint people as insane MAGA supporters. They're going to slander them with conspiracy, just like the one we just saw there. Expect more of that. Yep. And it's going to be a way to drive wedges. It's going to be a way to, you know, to make the public who support Donald Trump look insane. To which I would say, well, they've been doing that already for the last 3 years. And yes, there are relevant concerns with things like bird dogging, people planting themselves in MAGA crowds to look insane for the purpose of slander in the mainstream press. That is absolutely going to happen. The reason we know it's going to happen, James, is because it's already been happening for the last 3 months. The reason we know the mainstream media complex is going to attempt to use this as a way to slander MAGA supporters and make them look insane is because they've already been doing that for 3 years. Their MO hasn't changed. This is just perhaps a different vehicle which they might attempt to utilize in order to achieve the outcome that they have been unsuccessful in achieving up until this point. So when the big arguments come around, and they will, is Q real? Is Q? I tend to think a productive way of going about it is, be it real or not, have I learnt anything? Do I now have a better understanding of things I wouldn't have studied before? And is it causing me to be more or less productive when it comes to the battle that's ahead, midterms, 2020, and just the cultural conversational battle, which is going to be engulfing everyone at some point, whether they like it or not. And, you know, if that manifestation in your belief in Q leads to productive actions, then so be it. If that manifestation belief in Q leads to you doing absolutely nothing, sitting on the lounge and saying, well, I don't have to care, trust the plan, then you're probably missing the point entirely. And if your non-belief in Q leads to you dismissing every single piece of research, every single item that's brought to you, because it was originally inspired by some belief in a mythical, fantastical, non-existent creature online somewhere, despite the facts being real or otherwise, then you're probably missing the point as well. So that's what I have to say on the matter.
Awesome. I couldn't agree with a lot of what you said more. Probably all of it, to be honest with you. I have slightly different takes and angles on it, of course. I would say this, that one of the things that your major theme, in my opinion, is that what do we do most often here on Trust and Verify is we say, think for yourself. We do not tell you what to think. We do not tell you who to believe in, what to believe in this, believe in that, trust this, trust that, other than trust yourself. Trust your instinctual judgment. Here's the data. Here's the facts. This is what is going on. Now think about it. And then we tell you how we think about it as an opinion, exactly like you just got done discussing. Here is the opinion. So my opinion here is that holy shit is about to break loose this week. And I have evidence. And I am about to show you some of that evidence. Now, hopefully my system stays together here because I am pushing the limits of what's possible. Boogie half the time when he's talking. I got all kinds of shit going on here. So give me a second here. I am going to bring this in real quick. Let me see.
Kind of pushing no more, Captain. She's going as hard as she go.
I'm pushing it for all she's got, Captain. Here we go. I think everybody needs to hear this. So I'm going to make sure everybody hears this.
But we're going to win, and we're going to win big. You just watch. We have the cards. They don't. But we're going to win, and we're going to win big. You just watch. We have the cards. They don't. But we're going to win, and we're going to win big. You just watch. We have the cards. They don't. But we're going to win, and we're going to win big. You just watch. We have the cards. They don't. But we're going to win, and we're going to win big. You just watch. We have the cards. They don't.
All right, that's enough. So you get the picture, right? That's the president.
Sure you don't want to play it another 4 times? Or
I wanted to make sure that everybody was on the same page here. Now I've got this other Q post. Now I'm not the Q whisperer. That's Dave's job. I am not the Q interpreter. That is Dave's job. I am a guy who sifts through data, looks at it, analyzes it, and fits it into my puzzle by rebuilding the puzzle every time I have a new piece of data. Having said that, Q, over the last few weeks, has been specifying very clearly that nobody will ask the president, is Q real? Nobody in any media position will ask, what's going on with Q? Nothing. There's been radio silence. So Q started posting, we may have to force this one. What happened after Q posted, we may have to force this one? The media decided to light the world on fire with everybody hates Q hysteria. And then what else was Q posting about? This is a summary. This is the latest one, but you can look back into the Q post. If you don't know where to go to qanon.pub, and you can see for yourself that he has clearly been saying that this is going to separate fake MAGA shills out of your life. This is going to expose fake investment in people telling you who to think and who to believe and what to believe. Now, I highlighted this post very clearly because I'm going to point some things out. Is that fake news worldwide, fake MAGA supporters, bandwagon shills, paid shills, Media Matters, Intel infiltration, MSM infiltration, Twitter bot attack. You get the picture. Look at this post. This is the most relevant post in my opinion because what happened after all kinds of fake MAGA people started beating up and saying, I'm going to do this expose and that expose and Q is fake and Q is real. What happened? We got the president that just went through and said, Q, just watch. Q, just watch. Q, just watch. This is not a U. This is a Q. You can clearly hear it. And that's not any fake thing. Why? Because it is sitting on the president's White House Twitter page. So unless somebody hacked the Twitter page and played with the audio on the original file, the president said, Q, just watch. Why? Because he's setting everybody up. This is where I go into James land and I start telling you how the picture starts forming this puzzle. This is not just about verifying Q, whether Q is real or fake or anything like that. This is about setting up the media. Remember the Q post. We may have to force this one. What does the president do? Q, just watch. What does that set up? The mainstream media has to ask the question. Or they have to do what's, in my opinion, even more better for us, is they don't ask the question. That just proves they completely want to avoid the subject. They completely don't want to talk about it. I actually think it's better for us if they don't ask him what was with the Q thing, right? Because they have to. Did you mean to say Q? Were you misspeaking? Do you know what Q is? Do you realize that we just did an expose for the last week about how fake Q is and you happen to come out randomly and say Q, just watch? You have to think these things through. They set them up. They're literally, they got nothing is what I guess I'm getting at. Now, I don't know if Boogie's been trying to talk this whole time because obviously I've been having issues here. So I'm going to restart this and then I'm going to kick it back and try to hear him.
Are you there?
Try it. Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. So a couple of things. So I suppose you're entertaining the idea that this perhaps could indeed be a psyop, but perhaps one that's being run not necessarily by the Democrats, not necessarily by left-wing activators, agitators trying to set up MAGA people for a great fall, not necessarily by swindlers and hucksters and snake oil salesmen attempting to make a profit, but rather by someone who, you know, may indeed be working closely like they have said all along, but, you know, in a way to set up the mainstream media for some kind of great fall, the final push. So that's something, you know, to entertain. I would say, though, in regards to that clip, I'm afraid I'm going to have to go skeptical on you and say he could have misspoke. For example, I remember I did a big rhetorical breakdown of the the inauguration speech, James. And if you listen very carefully in that, you'll find that Donald Trump actually says on the verge of a moo millennium. And I didn't once think he was talking about a cow.
Exactly.
I didn't hear that and think he must be talking about some kind of secret agent space flying cow when he's talking about on the verge of a moo millennium. It was just one of those things. So I do tend to think that we might be in that category, but again, I mean, right? This is the opinion game. Opinions are like arseholes. Everyone's got one.
That's right.
So I do find the conversation interesting, and I'll be following the conversation, not so much, you know, the Q drop, so to speak. Hey. I'll defer to you and other people who follow it, you know, because other people do it a lot better than I do. So.
Oh, I don't follow it. I follow Dave. I just follow enough of the data points that make itself big and known. And that's the point, is that you're hitting on all cylinders here. Is that was my point as well, is that I've said all along, I'm still saying today, I don't even care whether Q is real, fake, whatever. What I care about is the result. The result is everybody do your own research. Everybody think for yourself. You don't need me to tell you whether or not Q is real, fake, whatever. You need to do your own research. Come to the conclusions. He's standing here showing neon signs that say, look over here, like you were just talking about, FISA, FISA, FISA. But what I have to look at is that, you know, this is one of those things where there's only been Q saying, we may have to force this one. And if the president just misspoke, I'm cool with that. But my point is the setup is there. They virtually somebody has to ask that question. It's clearly out there now. only because of that drop. Had Q never mentioned that the president was involved, had Q never mentioned that we may have to force this one, had Q never mentioned watch for all of the fake MAGA shills coming out, had this not happened, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But all those things happened before, by date, the fake people started coming out. It literally happened before, by over 2 days before the president's post of Q just watch. So I'm okay if he misspoke. My whole point, the entire thing that I just surmised together there, is that they have to ask the question. So it's very interesting.
How about this then, to encourage people a little bit? You don't have to. Clearly, by James and I conversation here, we're coming at this from different ways, probably. Okay, and we're looking at it differently. But that doesn't mean that we can't have the conversation, because, like I said, if it is to be slandered as some kind of religious cult, then be an agnostic. Say that I'm open to argument and I'm open to new information. And, you know, if there is a Sky Daddy Q out there somewhere, then, you know, I'm open to seeing the evidence. Have that attitude. You know, just like we say often on this show, James, don't be a source Nazi when it comes to sourcing your information and your material. Don't be a Q Nazi either. You know, like if and
a Q
you know,
Nazi.
Well, I mean, if you're in the mindset of you need to be on a side and you need to defend that side and you're heavily emotionally invested in it, which is up to you. Don't get me wrong. But right. you realize then it's going to be a lot harder for you to just cognitively be aware of things that may come into your sphere which disagree with your prior position. Just you're going
this goes
to defend
back to exactly
harder.
Yeah, this goes back to exactly how these guys do this to you guys, and they have been doing this to you forever. All of us, is that they try to make you argue about a different point than what the actual point you should be arguing over is. It's just like them using language to steer you to talk about gun control instead of the Second Amendment. This is the exact same thing. We've talked about this ad nauseum. When you agree to discuss gun control, you've already lost. You've already acceded to their language game. But that's what they're doing to you here, is they want you to argue about whether or not Q is real, instead of doing the research and arguing over who the hell tried to do this FISA deal and slam it down our throats and illegally spy on the president. Who is trying to run a coup on the government? That's the important factors. This FISA stuff is big deal. This is the big time. That's where the focus and the energy needs to be, is in the research, in the critical thinking, not getting you distracted in whether or not you believe in Q or you believe in Q or I don't believe in Q or Q is up in the sky or Q is in the ground. I don't care. All I care about is the research, the data, and the thinking.
Need input. Bring me information. Let's talk about information. And if you want to talk about a mythical Sky Daddy, perhaps, James, if you are that way inclined, then we can start with this one, my friend. Pastor at Trump rally asked God to protect president from, quote, jungle journalism. This ought to be good. Let's have a look at
Father,
the pastor.
We welcome your presence into this building today. And we thank you that you gave us a president who has a vision to make America great again. Lord, I thank you that we have a president who is bold, courageous, and lion-hearted. God, I think of David when I think of our president. Lord, David took on that mighty giant by the name of Goliath when he reared his ugly head. And even his closest allies said to him, "What are you doing?" And David answered with a simple question, and he said, "Is there not a cause?" I thank you for a president who has a vision for the cause of making America great again. Tonight I pray that you would protect our president and his family with a shield of faith. Lord, that shield of faith against the fiery darts of the wicked one. Lord, against that jungle journalism that distorts the truth and distorts honesty and integrity every single day, gets in his face with lies and mistruths and innuendos. Lord, protect him. Protect him from those poisonous asps that lurk in the swamp of politics. Lord, put your hedge of protection around our president. For that, we will thank you every day.
I quite like that. The invocation later bolstered by the president's own comments, James. This comes from CNN, known right-wing conspiracy website CNN. Deriding the news media during the rally came at a relatively contentious time between the White House and members of the Fourth Estate. The only issue I'd have with that small prayer there, James, is I wouldn't call it jungle journalism. I did an hour and 20-minute step-by-step, line-by-line deconstruction of Jim Acosta, which you can find at YouTube, the complete deconstruction of Jim Acosta. I called it a deconstruction because dropping a bomb is too easy. I actually wanted to take the building of Jim Acosta apart brick by brick and then stack up all the building materials on the site like it was never built and point to it. There's the deception part. Okay, this pile of rubble over here, that's the lies, that's the manipulation over there, and you can make out each individual little foundation stone makes up Jim Acosta. So, I wouldn't call it jungle journalism so much as it's more like your enemies have captured a Terminator and reprogrammed it, sent it back in time to our time right now, and emotionless and soulless and a cavern where any kind of empathy would be is just a beating heart of, silicon and metal shavings, James. And this guy is just on a mission out there to destroy you every single day. He doesn't sleep. He doesn't stop. He is just going to keep firing those bullets until you give up. So I think that's a better way of describing the journalists, the corporate media complex, the huge machine that we're dealing with. If Donald Trump is so good at trolling the media, James, here's my question for you. Why do they keep crying? Why don't they stop? Why don't they just stop engaging with it? Because to me, this is a tactic. They're trying to take away one of Donald Trump's biggest weapons. They know when he attacks the press, the people love it. And so they're trying to take that club out of his kit bag. It's not going to work, is it? Surely.
No, of course not. The president knows exactly what he's doing, and this is exactly how he's going to end run these people. This is why I said a long time ago, I can see that Twitter has a chance to make it back. Twitter has a chance to survive. Facebook does not. Facebook is about to go the way of the toilet. Twitter may also follow it down the toilet. But I think there is a good opportunity for them to stay relevant. But it's going to come down to how these things unfold here relatively quickly. I agree with you. Like the proof is in the pudding always. Just like Jim Acosta, saying that I think it was April Ryan actually that said Jim Acosta's life was in danger, and photos and videos. Yeah, he's taking selfies. He literally put a MAGA hat on to get a picture taken. So maybe that's what April Ryan was talking about. When he put that MAGA hat on, liberals may have kicked his ass because he had on a MAGA hat. So maybe that's when his life was in danger. That's when his life was in danger. So, excuse me,
Mr. Armed Intruder. Before you gut me like a fish and spray my entrails around the living room, can I get a selfie for Facebook? Is that cool? Just before you kill me? Sweet. Thanks, bro. Going to the top of the death list. Yeah, it's a joke. It's a complete joke. And it's a scheme. It's a plot. It's just, the thing that's most infuriating to me is two things. Number one, apparently you only have this opinion because you watch too much Fox News. So that's the first insult. I tend to find in my experience online and speaking with Americans, James, at least half of them hate Fox News just as much as they hate CNN. At least half of them, right? Right. The other issue I have is this is CNN now making news. They are creating their own news now. CNN, Jim Acosta asks particularly loaded questions from across crowded rooms. That spawns a news segment. Oh, he refused to answer our questions from Russia, and now he's going to Twitter to talk about immigration. He's afraid of us. Meanwhile, he's attacking us constantly. Right? So they're now making the news about themselves. And that's the infuriating part. You can't stand there on one hand and say we're doing our job, we're fact checkers, and then on the second hand make the entire presidency about you at CNN. Right. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, I think that's why we're Yeah, I think that's why we're kicking ass out here in internet land. And you look at all of the people. Like, look at how many different broadcasters there are that a lot of our people, the people that follow us, trust. You know that, and that's the key, is that when all of us are on the same page, we're all saying, look, here's our information. This is how I see that information. And now you need to think for yourself. You figure it out. And so that is how you do journalism. It's also how you do opinion journalism, is you spell it out. These are the data points. This is how I analyze the data points. And this is what my conclusion is. Now you think. It's your turn. It's your turn to take that and think for whatever you want. And it's on the other side that they just don't get it, that nobody is listening to them. So I hope they continue. I hope they don't fix it. They're giving me an opportunity and you an opportunity to become more popular at doing the right thing for the American people and not take the chance of somewhere in the future them changing their mind and trying to go back to being the Mockingbird media. See, I want them to destroy themselves. I love it. I love it.
Just going back to should they or should they not ask Donald Trump about Q, I tend to be with you. If they wanted to push the narrative, they would ask him. How about this one, James? Donald Trump in mental decline. Top aide says, we're back to the 25th Amendment. Have you ever felt like you're Bill Murray in Groundhog Day? Do you ever wake up and hit that alarm clock at 6 o'clock? Rise and shine. It's the 25th Amendment. This one comes from Channel 9 News, James. Donald Trump's mental decline is undeniable, according to a former White House aide who has known him for years. Omarosa Manigault Newman made the accusation in her soon-to-be-published book, Unhinged. That's very clever, isn't it? Taking the word unhinged and then using it for your own book title. It's very timely. They're very clever, these publicists. In an excerpt of the book printed by the Daily Mail, Manigault Newman said she felt Trump's mind was deteriorating while she was watching an interview he gave with NBC midway through 2017. Remember the interview with Lester Holt? Remember that train wreck?
Right.
I realized that something real and serious was going on in Donald's brain. His mental decline could not be denied. Many didn't notice it as keenly as I did because I knew him way back when. They thought Trump was being Trump. Off the cuff, but I knew something wasn't right. I actually take this as for me, this is actually a positive story, James, and let me explain why. For far too long, naysayers out there, would-be haters out there, James, people lacking compassion and empathy, have been going around to put pills, trying to shove pills down the throats of the mentally ill, telling them that they can't achieve anything, telling them that they need to be mollycoddled, telling them that they need to be treated with some kind of special care, going to be able to function. Here is a man who is literally attacked from morning till night by every major news corporation in the Western world. He has people threatening his death, people flashing across those various news sources, holding his beheaded head. And despite being riddled with all of these mental problems, he still managed to broker a peace deal with North Korea, get out of the TPP, and become president, James. I mean, it's bravo. It's another win for the mentally ill. Congratulations. You can do anything. Don't let anybody out there tell you that you can't achieve something. Here's a guy achieving everything he can achieve despite apparently being mentally unhinged. Isn't that just an uplifting tale? Good on him. I'm so proud of him. Aren't you?
Yeah. Okay. I absolutely love it, but I have to highlight at this point that Boogie just used the word mollycoddle. Not a lot of our people probably even know what mollycoddle is, but that was hilarious. Like, I love it. Look, if he's mentally unstable, thank God. Like, I mean, because if that's what it takes, I mean, at least we're winning, right? I mean, at least we're overcoming all of these people that are trying to kill us, that are trying to enslave us, that are trying to make us open up all our borders and run amok. I mean, it's every man for himself. Oh, and we'll take away all your guns too. So now it'll be like, nationwide fight club. Instead of, actual, like, protecting your family, everybody will have to fight and might will make right. And that's the direction they want to go. You can look all over Europe. You can see it. This is what they want. They want it to be absolute anarchy. So if he's insane, thank God for insanity.
Great point. Look at all the sanity happening in Europe, James, by letting millions of people flood in without background checks. Isn't that so sane and wonder? That's what a rational person would do. You know, right. The irrational person believes that borders aren't racist. You crazy motherfucker. Get him out of there. Put him on medication. He's in mental decline. Speaking of mental decline, James, let's throw this up. Democrats had a little soiree over the weekend for potential future leaders. Elizabeth Warren, America's criminal justice system is racist. She's allowed to say that because she is an American Indian. Look at those cheekbones. There's no mistaking it. At Netroots Nation Conference, James, leading Democratic presidential hopefuls embrace the concept of intersectionality. Yes, that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear Democrat presidential hopefuls getting together and saying, you know, the way we get back to the White House is by dividing the population into even more categories of oppression. That's how we're going to win. That's how we're going to win people over. Kamala Harris attacked critics of identity politics, James. Elizabeth Warren insisted that Democrats could be both the party of the white working class and the party of Black Lives Matter at the same time, mind you, while calling the American criminal justice system racist. And Cory Booker said it was time to get folk woke. I like that as a bumper sticker, to be fair. At the Netroots Nation Conference in New Orleans on Friday, leading Democratic presidential hopefuls embraced the concept of intersectionality, viewing any conflict between economic populism and racial and social justice as a false choice, James. I have a problem with that phrase, identity politics, said Kamala Harris, the junior Democratic senator from California, during a keynote address of the gathering of more than 3,000 liberal activists. Let's be clear, she said. When people say that, it's a pejorative. That phrase is used to divide, to distract. Oh, right. The phrase identity politics is used to divide, not identity politics. Isn't that interesting? Its purpose is to minimize and marginalize issues that impact all of us. It's used to try and shut us up. Is this just, you know, are we watching the civil war of the Democrat Party, James, happen in real time? Here are now people. Now, Elizabeth Warren, I forget her position before, but she was basically installed, was she not, by the person who was in there before her. I can't remember now what the name was. Cory Booker, far left. Kamala Harris, far left. This is the far left tip. This is perhaps the new, you know, the new would-be leadership of the Democrat Party if you get rid of the Pelosi's and the Chuck Schumers. Do you think they can win on a platform of intersectionality and telling white working class voters that have ignored them in the last presidential election, James, that they can be friends with Black Lives Matter? I guess as long as they get to the back of the queue when they're marching with Black Lives Matter. Do you remember that? Right. Yeah. So the Black Lives Matter people said, no, it was white people at the front. White people, no, actually, white people had to get to the back. White people in the back, yeah. And they actually wouldn't let them the journalists, too. It was black journalists first. Yeah. Yes, well, that's very good for intersectionality. That's a vote winner, I assume, for the white working class people in, you know, Michigan and Wisconsin and areas such as that. I'm sure they get down with that kind of thing, do they not? Or am I wrong here? I mean, it is in The Guardian. It is a known right-wing conspiracy website, so, you know, you got to take it with a grain of salt, don't you? What's happening to the Democrat Party, James? Are they done? Yeah, they are definitely done. Look. This comes down to they're selling white guilt. They've always been selling white guilt. They're going to continue to sell white guilt. They're going to continue to try to make you believe that for whatever reason you are less than them, and they don't even see why that's wrong. Somehow they have twisted this in their mind to that reparations are due them for what happened 3-4 generations ago. And even though that happened, like it wasn't those people's fault that they're even putting it on. When you look at all kinds of statistical variables, it's literally like insanity. Somehow in the 60-70 time frame, they managed to convince themselves that the people that enslaved them gave up all their slavery ways, transferred it over to the Republicans that magically picked it up
and then they're on their side now. I don't get it. Like, something happened in these people's heads where this magical switch that they all talk about, where somehow the Democrat Party became the Republican Party and the Republican Party became the Democrat Party, even though there's absolutely not a single shred of evidence for that. I think it's amazing.
3 people.
I don't understand. Like, they just keep selling you this narrative over and over again, and people bought it. I mean, it kind of, to me, goes back to that whole, if you say a lie long enough, it eventually will become the truth. I guess that's what happened.
Yeah, I think at the height of it, 3 people changed sides. James. 3 people? I think that's the big crossover that they're talking about. I think it was 3 people went from the Democrat Party to the Republican Party at that time. But I don't know the names, but I think that's right. It's not all rosy, though, on the Donald Trump side of the aisle, James. I've got more real news for you here. This is from CBS. Some Republicans worry Trump is muddling midterm strategy, James. This is interesting. President Trump's strategy of becoming aggressively involved in the midterm elections is prompting concern among some Republicans who worry he's complicating the political calculus for GOP candidates trying to outrun his popularity. Those Republicans worry their statewide candidates may rise or fall based on Mr. Trump's standing, muddling their path to maintain control. Do have some echo thing going on here every now and then. But Mr. Trump has no plans to step out of the spotlight. He will hold a rally Saturday in Ohio and plans to host 2 fundraisers at the Trump National Golf Course in Bedminster, New Jersey, next week for House and Senate candidates, according to a campaign official with knowledge of the president's events. The official spoke on the condition of anonymity, don't they all, to discuss details about the fundraisers that haven't yet been publicly released. Yes, I can imagine it's very troubling for some of the Republican senators and congressmen, James, who for the longest time, 20, 30, 40 years in some cases, have been happy to coast along, telling, fighting the good fight on the public front, saying they want smaller government, lower taxes, and border security. But then when it comes to the crunch, when it comes to the time of actually enacting what they talk about so freely and so articulately in the press, doing sweet fuck all about it. So having someone in who's actually, outcomes based, I imagine it's very difficult for these Republicans. I imagine President Trump up there saying, this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it in the next 2 years if you elect this person. Because as we all know, James, if you are a subpar, mediocre politician, regardless of party, the last thing you want is people making hard and fast promises on your behalf to actually do something, right? You don't want that. We mustn't have that.
I love it. I mean, let's just look at the facts here. Is Donald Trump endorses a candidate and they can literally overcome a 30-point deficit? This doesn't happen. So anyone that's complaining and crying about the fact that Donald Trump is like, they're literally, because he didn't choose you, because you're not on the Trump train. Like, this is Trump train politics. This is our time to shine. We understand the game. We understand what's happening. So when you see a candidate like Bill Lee in Tennessee that comes out of nowhere because he campaigned exactly like Donald Trump and he crushes them, that you can just tell. When you see candidates that come from 30 points down and they win because Donald Trump endorsed them, you can tell. The whole narrative that the Republicans at the GOP are trying to sell, that somehow Donald Trump is hurting them in elections, is a lie. And that's what exposes further the swamp. This is why we hate the freaking swamp. They're just as much against us as the left. Everybody. It doesn't matter whether they say they're excuse me, sorry, a Republican, a Democrat, a Libertarian, a Green Party member. I don't care. If they're a member of the swamp, it's pretty clear to us, and we're voting in Trump MAGA candidates, and Trump's going to win. There's just no doubt about it.
Do you think then, because isn't there a number, I believe there's a number of races, primaries and whatnot coming up on Tuesday, one of which is Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. Yep. Is Michigan perhaps another one that's coming up on Tuesday, James? So would you, I know the people down at the campaign corner do some pretty good work, so they'd be across all of that, wouldn't they?
Oh yeah, yeah. Look for John James to win in Michigan. I mean, look, this actually, believe it or not, I'm sorry, this ties into Q, right? Is
Sorry,
that
no, I was giving
the
you,
whole
that was
idea
supposed to
of
be
trust
your
the
plug.
plan
You were
is this
supposed to
right here.
plug then.
This is what we're talking about. We're talking about trust the president, trust the plan. But that means get your ass out and do your job. Go knock on doors. You have to vote. You have to maintain and focus what you want to happen. It's like self-actualization, right? This plan will work if you trust the plan to get off your ass and work it. It's self-actualization. It's what you have to do. There's Sherry. There's our girl. So we got Michigan, Missouri, Washington, and Kansas all on August 7th. So yeah, and look at everything that they're doing in the campaign corner. They're telling you who is our only choice, who is our best choice, and then they're also telling you who is MAGA. And those MAGA candidates are winning because we only select the best that earn that MAGA rating.
Yeah, and this is something I spoke about in the recent, I think it was the Georgia primary, where that guy was elected who was apparently the next Adolf Hitler. And the panic attacks, James, we broke down a Jake Tapper. Remember Jake Tapper describing what a cuckservative is? One of the most fantastic pieces of cable television that you'll ever see in your life. So they're afraid now because what they said would never happen seems to, you would think that they would get the message by now in the corporate media. You would think in the boardrooms of CNN and MSNBC or whoever's paying their wages, who knows what pharmaceutical company or foreign government's doing it these days. I don't know. But whoever's doing it, you would think that they would sit around at some point and say, you know what? Our track record isn't looking too good these days. Every time we say something isn't going to happen, it tends to happen. Donald Trump will never win the election. These MAGA candidates, they're not going to win their primaries. There's no way the MAGA candidates are going to win their primaries. You're all crazy conspiracy theorists on the far right for thinking that. And one by one, they're falling. And I tend to think that that's fueling the civil war on the left side of the aisle, because you've got the far left, the socialists, James, who are looking at their Democratic Party leadership saying, you're not doing enough. You're not going hard enough at this. And we're not going to be taken over by a bunch of neo-Nazis. So it's time to whack on the black face mask, pick up the red flag with a hammer and sickle and take to the streets, because we're taking our party back. Well, not back, but yeah, we're just going to make it official. We're just going to become the Communist Party. We're just going to make that official. To hell with the Democrat Party. To hell with JFK. You're not doing anything. Speaking of the Communist Party, James, you noted the news about Dianne Feinstein through the week. She had a Chinese spy driving her around, driving Miss Juan, I think.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Real quick. I'm having serious audio issues, so I can't hear half of what you're saying. So let me take this moment to address the chat room. Kimmy Jong-un was a little bit worried because I said, there's our girl. She said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I thought I was y'all's girl. Who I got to fight? No fights, no fights. We got multiple girls. I'm sorry to say you guys are all doing a great job. So when I said that, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful to you, Miss Kimmy Jong-un. And then I saw an excellent funny ass comment by Jake. He said that I thought Trust the Plan was Nutrisystem. So there you go. So let's go ahead and move on to some serious stuff now.
Okay, well, driving Miss Chuan Wan Ching from China, James, the new driving Miss Daisy. Dianne Feinstein's driver was a Chinese spy. Apparently for 20 years he operated. It just goes to show how incompetence can breed espionage. But on that topic, James, I just found this particularly interesting. If you want to talk about Dianne Feinstein, even if you can even hear me, I'm not sure. But if you want to talk on that, a couple of quick articles to preface that, though. Cracks appear in invincible Xi Jinping's authority over China. Rumors have swirled in Beijing in recent weeks that China's seemingly invincible leader, Xi Jinping, is in trouble, dogged by a protracted trade war with the US, a slowing economy, and a public health scandal involving thousands of defective vaccines given to children. Oh, of course, this is from the far-right conspiracy website, James, The Guardian. So any talk about defective vaccines, well, I guess we better go to Alex Jones for that, because that's just conspiracy theory. Xi's name seemed to have disappeared for a while from the cover of the People's Daily, replaced with articles about his deputy, Li Keqiang. Sorry about that. And large portraits of him were said to have been taken down after a young woman filmed herself throwing ink at his image. So cracks appearing for Xi Jinping. On the other side, James, remember it was bring on the trade war. We have nothing to fear. America will be shaking in her boots because China is the all-powerful, all-conquering economic powerhouse of the next 50 years. China says tariffs constitute blackmail as Trump touts success. When did Jim Acosta become an advisor for the Chinese government? Just tell him he's picking on you. Tell him he's being mean. China's state media said on Saturday the government's retaliatory tariffs on $60 billion worth of US goods showed rational restraint, and they accused the United States of blackmail. Late on Friday. God, I'm having an absolute shocker with the readings today. Late on Friday, China's finance ministry unveiled new sets of additional tariffs on 5,207 goods imported from the United States, with the extra levies ranging from 5 to 25% on a total value of goods less than half of that proposed by US President Donald Trump's administration. The first thing that came to my mind, James, and you're far better with the economics and the trade than I am, but the first thing that popped into my mind was, is this a pincer movement? If you will remember, it was the Congress who last week passed a bill, which we don't think Donald Trump will sign, basically saying, we're not going to allow any tariffs on products X, Y, and Z. It would be interesting to see the cross-referencing of what those products actually are. And then at the same time, a week later, you have China saying, well, we are now going to boost tariffs on X, Y, and Z coming our way. So is this a bit of getting hit from the left and hit from the right for the White House at the moment?
Well, it's an attempt. I mean, but Donald Trump is like Muhammad Ali. He's going to duck, bob, and weave this stuff. Look, this is a very good position to be in. And I love the fact that they don't even understand that. I want you to understand that Xi Jinping being under pressure helps the negotiations because it weakens his position. He can't be authoritarian. The guys below him sense blood in the water, so they put pressure on him. See, the only way we win is if they have a reason to make a deal. If they have a reason. Now, if they oust him, it could be an issue. This is what we have been leading towards anyways. I don't really care if this leads there because I got to be honest. I hate war. I don't want war, but I damn sure am tired of feeding all the Chinese people on my sweat. I'm damn sure tired of building their economy on my back and my neighbor's back like we've been doing since, actually since about the 70s is when it started, but it really kicked in to hyperdrive under Clinton. Let me explain what's going on with our people. I want you to really think about how incestuous our senators and congressmen are with China. We have them married to people that are million, billion, trillionaires coming out of China. We have them not only in their own families, but we have everything started in the 90s with Clinton. Most people aren't even old enough probably to remember this, or they weren't engaged back at the time, is that under Clinton is when you started having this influx of Chinese cash coming in to buy our politicians. And there was a lot of stink about it. You can look back in articles if they're posted where they basically bought into the Clinton administration back in the 90s, and they carried that forward, and they through K Street allowed that to actually kind of spread, metastasize throughout Congress to both sides, which is why you see the globalist righties joining with the globalist lefties on these crazy ass policies that hurt Americans. because it benefits their pockets. What's that?
They always have been joined.
Yeah,
they always have. It's been an illusion. There's been an illusion created for the public. But the left and the right at the top have been joined at the hip for the last 40 or 50 years. We know this, and you can trace it back to the signing of the Lima Declaration, James. And this is not right-wing conspiracy stuff. Anybody can go in there and find this documentation themselves. These are sponsored white papers from the UN themselves, where they go into great detail about how they need to build up the third world economies. Because you remember, the thinking behind it was the more intertwined we make all the markets of the world, the less likely we are to have war. Because remember, the world at that time had just come out of 2 world wars. Everyone was war-tired. That's the way it was sold to the population. Hey, who doesn't want war? It sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? It's very wholesome. It's a noble ideal to have, to not want to go to war again. Unfortunately, when you let these bureaucratic vipers into a room with unsuspecting victims with warm and clean necks, James, they will bite and they will suck the blood out of you. And in these documents, it goes into great detail how we're to raise taxes and regulations on Western industries in order to facilitate moving of these industries to third world populations, in which they will be paid a fraction of the price that Western workers pay. We're to raise energy prices in the West artificially to make these kinds of industries unviable in the West, and that will raise living standards in other parts of the world, and it will force the Western nations, rather than trying to compete with each other, to become nations of renters. So they make the factories over there, and all of you guys just pay the same price, right? Price parity and stuff, and that's the plan. And they're very open about it.
Yeah.
And of course, unfortunately, here we are. We find ourselves in 2018 with various workers from various industries standing around going, hang on, all of this time we had goodwill in our government and you guys have been screwing us. And then they just turn around and call you a racist for pointing this out. And it's that kind of shit that's going to stop, because, again, at the top of the tree, at the top of the pyramid, these people are all on the same side. They're on one side and you're on another side. You're not on their side, but they're on the same side. Makes sense.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, China's going to lose here. They just are. Because we have a president that's going to stand up for the American people. That's the only reason. Look, this is trust the plan stuff. Donald Trump is our only hope. It's it. We've not had another warrior ever. Like, the proof happened right after the election, when all MAGA people's wool was just removed from our eyes, when it exposed the establishment righties resisting their own winning presidential candidate at every level. When we saw that, that was enough for us to start questioning and going back and looking and going, holy shit, these guys have been screwing us forever. Like, the Republicans are more responsible for us being woke than anyone else. Because if they would have just been quiet and gone along to get along and just toughed it out for 8 years, they would have been able to continue to lie to us. But now it's our time. Now we realize that's why they're losing their corporate media. That's why they're, losing their Starbucks stuff. You know what I mean? Like, all the boycotts. Like, this is why they're losing in every single aspect. Hollywood's crashing. Like, they're going to lose because we, the people, are not taking it anymore. We are at that screen. What was that movie where the guy opens up the window and everybody starts opening up the window? We're sick and tired of it, and we're not taking it anymore. Network. Yep. That's where we're at.
First of all, what I want you to do, I want you to go out to your window and I want you to open it, and I want you to stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell and I'm not going to take this anymore. Sorry, you inspired that quote. You inspired that quote.
Awesome.
Although, James, I have to let you know, even though you do untechnically count as part of the intersectional Democrat Party definitions here, intersectional minority in the United States, I'm afraid you did mention Starbucks without having first completed the sensitivity training. So I'm going to have to minus 5 points off your score tonight. I hope you understand, but we can't have any bigotry or any racism. Since you have mentioned trust the plan 50 times, like the typical Q show that you obviously are, Since you have gone overboard and mentioned trust the plan an innumerate number of times, I think it's time to go to the hammering and see what MSNBC thinks about this so-called plan. What do you say?
There we go. We're going to the hammering. If I can possibly get my computer to work right at all.
Stop the hammering.
This video is entitled President Donald Trump's Bizarre Midterm Election Strategy. This was on Deadline on MSNBC. Let's rock and roll.
They can make anything bad because they are the fake, disgusting news. Anything I want, they want to oppose. You know, I just figured out how to do the wall. I'll say, I don't want to build a wall, and they'll insist on building it. I just figured that out right now.
Lather, rinse, repeat. It is a time-tested strategy for Donald Trump. Bash the media and listen to the people cheer. That is
that's all that's going. He just bashes the media and people cheer, like, because they have no thoughts of their own. They up until Donald Trump got into power, James, everybody loved us here at MSNBC. Everybody loved CNN. Everybody trusted them. It was all very homely and nice, like a cup of tea and scones on a rainy Sunday afternoon.
the basic formula, part of a larger strategery, if you can call it that.
Strategery.
Midterm elections. But here's the question. Is throwing red meat at crowds in Pennsylvania and beyond really going to persuade the voters that Republicans need to maintain control of Congress this November?
Well, I mean, if we were listening to MSNBC during the election campaign, remember when he was just throwing red meat out to the white nationalists and the Nazis and the Ku Klux Klan, James? The strategery obviously works, right? Does he really think throwing red meat out to his fans during another campaign is going to work? Why not? You said that's what he was doing last time. Maybe he's taking your advice.
Philip Bump of the Washington Post wrote about the crowd last night at the rally. One thing was very clear. The people who were there to see Trump, not the people that Trump was stumping for. Yeah. Quote, it's certainly the case that there were more overt supporters of QAnon there than there were of Republicans.
Didn't you see those 5 signs in the crowd? All 5 of them. Didn't you see them?
Oh, my gosh.
Arletta, who was ostensibly the reason for Trump's visit. One guy with a lose sticker didn't want to talk. One woman with a Scott Wagner shirt explained that it was her only political shirt, and then she also called him Scott Walker.
Wow, yes. This is obvious. This makes it clear why if Donald Trump comes out and endorses somebody on Twitter, why their ratings go up about 30% on average, right? Because nobody cares. So how is this strategy going to work? I don't know. I've got no idea.
Scott Walker, former governor of Wisconsin, he ran for president. Joining us now, Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, a member of the House Intel and Judiciary Committees, and at the table, my friend.
People aren't going to swalwell this shift, James.
Friend, the Reverend Al Sharp, president of the National Election Network, and the host of Politics Nation here on MSNBC, a regular Friday panel. At this table. Great to see you, Rev. Congressman, we almost always have you on this program and on this network talking about Russia and collusion and obstruction and judiciary and intel stuff.
How's that working out for you?
I'm asking about politics today. You're watching Donald Trump. You're watching Donald Trump. Given these speeches, they're kind of always variations on the same theme with the slightly different moving parts, different stanzas, but the same chorus and the same melody. Is this the way you win in the current climate that we're facing? Is this?
Now, ladies and gentlemen, consider the ultimate irony of that very question. Eric Swalwell, we usually get you on here day after day, week after week for months on end to talk about Russia. Donald Trump says the same thing in his speeches. Do you think it's a good idea to keep repeating the same thing over and over again leading into an election?
Eric Swalwell reminds me of the guy from American Psycho. Remember American Psycho? That's Eric Swalwell.
Mr. Bates.
So is this the kind of thing when you're a Democrat, you're looking at this saying, man, I hope he keeps doing this all the way to November?
Yeah.
Well, I think he's missing what most people care about. And the president likes to say, no collusion, no collusion. And John, the truth is, when it comes to health care or extending paychecks or making sure he cleans up Washington, he certainly is not colluded with anyone to make that happen. And I think that's what we should be done.
Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, you have your very first sign of the great pivot move. Here we go. We finally and it's not like he's not getting a free hit from the guy on MSNBC either, is it? We've been talking about Russia for 12 months now. It doesn't seem to be effective. What do you think of Donald Trump's campaign strategy? Well, what he needs to be doing is talking about healthcare reform and draining the swamp, because that's what we care about here at the Democrat Party this week.
And point out, I was just in Western Iowa for the last couple of days with a candidate who's running against Steve King, and he's getting hundreds of people in Western Iowa, a place where we've never competed before. And I've seen that across the country.
Hundreds.
Go ahead. Yeah, literally hundreds.
He's getting hundreds. The stadium in Ohio right there has about 20,000 people in it, and this guy's touting how they got hundreds of people to support this guy. I love how the left always loves to try to see this play has always worked in the past. This is why they're going to. Yes, this play has worked so many times in the past. They think this time they can drain the swamp. They literally think they can steal that issue somehow. Like somehow if they steal it, it's all going to magically change everything they've said, everything they've been doing. They're freaking retarded.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, I don't think that Donald Trump's going to be stealing the Russia meme anytime soon. So they're going to have to. They're very creative, the left. Whatever's working, they'll adopt it.
And I think that's the energy that's going to help us win this November.
For a little while, Congressman, it looked like
the energy of 300 people in Western Iowa, James. That's going to help us win in November.
You can see it's polling. Earlier in the year, we said blue wave, blue wave, blue wave. And then it looked like things were tightening up in some of the generic ballots. We're looking at some polling that looked like Republicans at least feeling a little bit.
It was almost a moment of reflection there for the host of on MSNBC. No, but here we get now we chalk up number 2 instances of ultimate irony. You know, we've been talking about Russia collusion for 12 months, but that doesn't seem to be working. It's not our fault, though. Donald Trump's just distracting everybody with Q. On the other hand, earlier in the year, we were saying blue wave, blue wave, blue wave, blue wave. It doesn't look like it's going to happen now. So MSNBC in real time figuring out for themselves that just because they say something often enough doesn't mean that it necessarily comes fucking true. Imagine that.
More confident or not totally like they were totally doomstruck. That has seemed to have swung back in the opposite direction in these last few weeks. Republicans and Democrats alike that I talked to on Capitol Hill all now are like bracing for the blue wave and trying to figure out how big it.
The blue wave is back. Now it's just a question of how big it's going to be again.
It's going to be, but not really denying that it's.
If we can put it into terms, I guess the blue wave is going to be about 300 people deep. Is that about right? I don't know. Going off anecdotal evidence.
Coming. What is your sense of confidence level in Democrats retaking control of the House? And could it really be like a giant tsunami, or is this going to be a tight run thing?
I love the question because, you know, out here where we're observant of these things, he's being asked how confident is the Democrat Party going in. What do you think he's going to say? Do you think he's going to stand and say, well, our internal polling shows that we're being absolutely smashed in a number of key areas. Our internal polling shows that our voter engagement across the primaries is at record lows, even in places like California, even in places where New York, where the leftiest of the lefties has just won a primary against a moderate, quote unquote, moderate establishment Democrat, record low turnouts across the board. What do you think he's going to say? Oh, no, we don't like our chances at all. We're terrible. We're getting smashed. What a stupid question, right? But no, the question becomes, well, how big is the blue wave going to be? Well, can you measure it in terms of tsunami or just a little bit less than tsunami?
Right. This is how you softball up, and they demonstrate that they're playing on the Democrat team. Is that this is literally the opportunity. This is what you would do if I wanted Boogie to look like an all-star, right? I would say something like absolutely ridiculous and allow him to exude confidence. So I would say, you know, the polling shows that you guys are getting your ass kicked down in Australia, but do you think we have a shot here at crushing England in cricket this year? Yeah, I mean, that's a softball.
Yeah, because you know what, James, we don't pay attention to the polls. What we're doing every single day is out there discussing with stakeholders and talking about the issues that matter to them. They don't care about Russia. And for all the promises that the England cricket team makes about draining the swamp, we know from dealing with people, knocking on doors, talking to people in car parks and in shopping centres, James, that they have confidence in us to take the fight to the other side. And we're pretty sure that when push comes to shove on bowling day in the privacy of that booth, people are going to do the right thing and back people who can actually win and make significant changes and bring hope for a better future. How's that?
There you go, baby.
Yeah,
that's how you go for 6 right there.
There it is. No, it's a tsunami.
About 60 of them are under the age of 40. They're veterans, small business owners, doctors, many
60 of the 300 are under 40. Looking good.
Who have stepped up and never would have imagined that they'd be running for Congress, but they see a wrecking ball president and they're inspired to want to help their community. And so I do think we are expanding the map as far as where we can compete. But when I talk to them, it's not about Trump. One candidate said to me, he said, in my district, Donald Trump is like smog. We know it's there. We breathe it. We see it every day. But that's not the focus. The best thing we can do is focus on healthcare, making sure that tax cuts help everyone, and going after the corruption. So
two terrible analogies there from Eric Swalwell. This is how you can tell he's an amateur, James. He's number one. He says Donald Trump is a wrecking ball, and then insinuates that his people are going to stand in front of a wrecking ball. Good luck with that. Nobody ever gets hurt standing in front of a wrecking ball. And then he uses the strange smog analogy, James. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. We breathe it in every day, but we're not focused on that. We're focused on something else. Of course, everyone knows when there is heavy fog, it literally impenetrates your lungs. It is everywhere, and you can't focus on anything. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe the smog of Donald Trump is so thick that they're thinking that they're focusing on something else, like Russia or healthcare, for example, but they're really just looking at a pile of crap in San Francisco on a street, like a mirage, like a stinky Democrat blue wave mirage. They think that their path to victory is through the smog, James, instead of trying to clear the smog.
I think that's a winning message in each of these districts.
Right. Rev, I got to ask you. So
got to ask you.
I was on Morning Joe this morning. I got to ask this question right at the top. What do you think of Trump's rally? I said, man, it's getting old.
It's getting old.
See, this is how they use this excuse right here to not show the rally. I want you to think about this. This is even worse than the rally. So not only do they try to completely ignore the fact that 20,000, 30,000 people are showing up to see the president, but when we get a huge, massive tidal wave win of North Korea sending our soldiers home, sending their remains home, only Fox News covered the ceremony 100%. Yep. And everybody else virtually ignored it. There was 2 other stations, and they were like 5 minutes, and like 30 seconds. Like, it was ridiculous. Like, and this is over our soldiers, our boys that died 60, 70 years ago, the Korean War. They never even bothered to cover it. And this is what they're doing here, is they're setting up their excuse for why they're not going to cover the president from here forward. We knew this day was coming. We've all talked about it. We are going to have to fight very hard. And this is why you see them trying to shut us down on Twitter, shut us down on Facebook, because if they can they think that if they can suck all the oxygen out of knowing what's going on with Trump, that somehow we won't show up to the voting booth.
Well, they've sold it very well, though, James. I think you have to give credit where it's due, because when there's 5,000 people standing outside a stadium to see Donald Trump speak, obviously it's a sign that things are getting old. When you can get together 300 people in Western Iowa and talk about smog, obviously there are high energy levels and a blue tsunami is all but imminent.
This bit that he's doing, it's just starting to get a little tired and feel overly familiar. Is this really the kind of thing, again, while a lot of the political dynamics are against the Republican Party, yeah, this is going to rev up the 35% who love Donald Trump, but is this the way that Lou Barletta wins Pennsylvania? Is this the way that an endangered Republican in a seat that won in 2016?
See, this is the other irony too. You'll know in politics, what's one of their favorite phrases, James? Stay on message, right? stay on message, stay on message, stay on message. 6 months ago, they're criticizing Donald Trump because he doesn't stay on message often enough. Now that he's done 2 rallies in 3 days, they're like, oh, can he get off the message for once? This is boring. Everyone's sick of it now.
Is this the kind of message that motivates the voters they need?
Well, I don't.
No, those people standing outside the stadium for 5 hours not getting in, James, the thousands of people around the country who can't get into these rallies, they're just waiting in line for a bus ticket. They're not there for Donald Trump.
So I think, first of all, you've got to deal with the motive. The two things he tries to discredit at all of these rallies is Mueller and the press, because he's trying to destabilize anything that comes out that may point to him being guilty of anything. So he wants to really...
Guilty of anything now. They're trying to set the standard as he's Jesus Christ. If he's not as perfect as Jesus Christ, he's guilty. Jesus
Christ. And he said unto them, James, you may have sex with Playboy playmates, and thee shall grab them by the private areas, and thee shall become president. James, Reverend Al Sharpton, ladies and gentlemen.
Don't believe the press. Don't believe Mueller. So that's the motive. The act, though, is wearing thin. And, you know, I said right after he was elected, when I was a kid, James Brown, the singer, used to help my youth civil rights work. And James Brown told me the first time he took me to Las Vegas, the difference between a lounge act and an act that goes in the main room. He says, you get attention in the lounge act. You do silly things because you're competing with people drinking and people talking and paying you.
Al Sharpton, ladies and gentlemen, a man who knows something about a routine getting old after 40 years of race baiting, coming to you live from the lounge.
No mind. But when you get on the main stage, Rev, you've got to perform because they paid $100 a seat at that time, and they want to see a show. He's a lounge act. And after a while, even the most intoxicated patron gets tired of the lounge act.
And they end up in West Ohio with 299 losers. Thank you, Al Sharpton. Thanks for pointing out how easy it is to become tired of someone staying on message. What a better man to tell us, by the way, of the horribleness of saying the exact same thing for 35 years and not proceeding anywhere with it. Congratulations. There's your hammering.
Oh, my God. What a hammering. That was amazing.
Stop the hammering.
For coming. Thanks for showing up. I appreciate it. Boogie appreciates it. I'm sorry for all my technical difficulties, which hopefully you didn't even really notice other than the fact that I couldn't hear a god dang thing the whole damn time. I still can't hear right now. So what's new, right? I did want to say that I did see the chat there at the end. There were some things we should have talked about. But you know, we don't want to interrupt the flow of an excellent hammering like that. I saw Kimmy out there. Kimmy, you said something that I want you to rethink. You said, I think, you screamed it, you put it in all caps, we need cocks. That's probably not a good way to word that. I did see SoCal Patriot cover back up with California needs cocks. I'm not sure that one's going to sell very well either.
Running around as it is. Don't worry about California. They got plenty.
So, you guys are awesome. We love you. Thanks for coming. Aloha. Everybody have a great day.